What is up, gang? Hey, I'm excited to jump on live. I have the fabulous Hannah here from Run This Mom Life. Run This Mom's Life. You can find her on Instagram, and she's one of my clients. And I always get tons of questions from distance runners with regards to how do you incorporate marathon training? How do you incorporate distance running with intermittent fasting and carb cycling? And Hannah actually enrolled in the Lean program when she started training for her very first marathon, which it was kind of crazy. What I want to know why you thought incorporating such a structured program like Lean in your first marathon training was going to be beneficial.
So I started Lean because I was pretty nervous about gaining weight with the marathon. So I had always heard you can't run and train for long distance races, half marathon, without putting on weight. And I kind of wanted to bash that notion. And I was also postpartum, so I also had some baby weight to lose, and didn't want to pack on more pounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, you love to run. Yeah. So how long have you been doing distance running for?
Distance running, I started when our son was born. It was kind of my way to get away.
Yeah, I love that.
And so it kind of started as like 10 minutes at a time, and then slowly built up, and then became like hours away.
I love that.
Really it was just for my sanity with motherhood.
Okay, and how old's your son?
He's 3 now, and then we have a 13-month-old daughter.
Okay, so 3. So and that's the thing. I feel like a lot of people that do participate in distance running, like, you do it because you love it. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't love to run. If you see me running, somebody's chasing me probably, or I'm running to get a margarita. I don't know. But so, you know, and I'm all about, a lot of people will contact me and be like, you know, I love to run, and I am all about doing exercise that you find joy in. Mm-hmm. Because one of the biggest things you get out of exercise is like the endorphins. Yeah. You know, so that's great. So you decided to jump into the Lean program as a way to kind of, you know, manage your overall health and weight and things like that. And that's interesting because I think a lot of people, you know, that's the biggest misconception about kind of like distance running, is that you think if you're going to be running, I mean, how many miles a week does a typical marathon training average?
It just depends. So mine was on the lower end because I was coming off an injury, and I was also cycling or spinning at the same time. So it really ranges between probably 30 to elite runners are doing like hundreds of miles a week.
A week?
But I would say the average would probably be like 30 to 50 miles a week.
Dang.
Yeah.
30. I didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, obviously there's some concern. So with regards to the weight gain, we were talking about this earlier. There's 2 scenarios that you think that really impact why sometimes when you're training for a marathon you actually put on weight.
Yeah.
What are those scenarios?
Yeah. So the first one I thought was you're hungry because you're burning so many calories, especially long runs. So usually you have 1 long run a week. It's usually in the double digits, so 10 to 20 miles in that one run. So you're burning 1,000 to 2,500 calories, and so obviously you're going to be hungry.
Right.
So you're eating probably a little bit more than usual. And then the second scenario is, and my problem always has been, oh, well, I just ran 15 miles.
20 miles.
I can eat whatever I want now. So then it's like double cheeseburger, French fries, and so then that's the other scenario.
So you think that, you know, you've kind of earned those extra calories.
Yeah.
And you probably have in some capacity, but probably not in the magnitude of like what we think, you know, that to be. So that's really interesting because I do, again, a lot of distance runners will come to me and be like, I mean, I run 30 miles a week. Like, I don't understand why I'm not losing weight. So really kind of the macro management plays like a huge role in that. So I'm always, the biggest question I get is, how am I going to train for a marathon? How am I going to keep doing this distance running and incorporate intermittent fasting? So just to give you a little feedback in terms of like what intermittent fasting is, there's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate intermittent fasting. The one that we use in the Lean program is the 16-8. So we aim to fast for 16 hours a day, and then we try to limit our eating window to 8 hours a day. And I think most runners typically run first thing in the morning, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a runner. Maybe y'all, I don't know. Are there runners out there? When are you running? Tell me. Put it in the comments below. But, you know, to get up, to have the time to devote to, you know, 6, 10, 8 hour, you know, 8 mile runs, you're probably doing it first thing in the morning. So super scared about running in a fasted state. So tell me how you manage. We'll talk about longer runs in just a second, but let's just talk about, you know, what did you do when you first started implementing intermittent fasting with regards to your running?
Yeah, so I was starting at the very beginning of my training cycle, and so I was starting with low mileage, shorter runs, so typically 4 to 6 miles per run, and I did those fasted. I had actually heard from another running friend, Lexi, before I started the program. I reached out to her and she's like, oh, I've done a 24-hour fast and ran after that. So I was like, oh, if you can do that, then I can do a measly 5 mile after a 16-hour fast.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then my body just kind of adjusted and felt comfortable with it.
Yeah. And I know for me, when I started working out in a fasted state, it was hard.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the first,
It's an adjustment.
it is an adjustment. Like the first week I could tell, like, I'm not as strong.
Yeah.
You probably didn't run as fast.
Right. I was definitely slower, and so I had to be comfortable with being slower, and then my heart rate went up a little bit higher than it usually does. And so adjusting with hydration and electrolytes helped with that.
The electrolytes are so important.
Yeah.
Electrolyte. Did you know that before?
I did not. No, I did not. And so another thing is I learned more in those 7 weeks from you than I learned in like a lifetime. So I was always like first on the live videos every week, and I always had questions, and then I learned so much.
I love that. I love that. I did not tell her to say that.
No,
but I do feel like, I think that people underestimate, and I'm surprised because honestly, I felt like you were going to say, no, like we eat this electrolyte goo, and we have all these, you know, tricks that we do as long-term runners, but I'm really amazed at how much so many people feel better with consuming electrolyte water. Just simply adding that extra sodium, potassium, and magnesium makes a huge difference. And I can only imagine the difference it makes with regards to a runner. And here's the other thing. I'm going to get a little bit off topic with this electrolyte, but you know, I would imagine as a runner, you tend to drink a lot of water. So what I find is when people increase their water consumption and it's not electrolytes, you tend to do more harm than good, because you're actually flushing out, you're sweating out all the sodium, all the electrolytes, then you're flushing it out with all that water. So electrolyte water, I think definitely any type of fasted workout, just anytime you're fasting, electrolyte water is so helpful. Smart Water, Life Water, Essentia, you know, things like that. So I think it's important to note that there is a transition. Yeah, I mean, you're not, and I love a lot of the stuff that Hannah implemented was about giving yourself grace.
Yeah.
You know? So is it probably a good idea to start fasting 2 weeks before your marathon? No, don't do that.
Yeah.
But recognize that things will kind of level out. So the first couple of weeks, your performance wasn't the best, but you felt like your body did adapt.
Right. Yeah. So I would recommend starting it either at the beginning of a training cycle or during the off season, so your body can get used to it, and then starting the next cycle, it's prepared.
So let's talk about like the longer. So I mean, in my book, 6 miles is a long run. So what is considered a long run? You do that like once a week, typically?
Yeah, generally once a week, especially as a beginner. Usually I do it Sunday run day.
Okay.
So I I think anything over 10 miles is a long run. But most people go up to usually a 20 miler when they're training.
So on those days, did you feel the need to modify your fast in any way to accommodate running over 10 miles?
Yeah. So a couple things that I would either do is I would figure out what time I was going to run that morning and prepare the night before, either cutting the fast off earlier and then breaking the fast earlier the next day. Sometimes I would break the fast during the run, so I would take like an RX bar with me, and after 6 miles I would start eating it, and that would be breaking the fast. And whether that happened an hour early or at the 16-hour mark, it didn't really matter to me. So those are the two main things I did. And then sometimes when I got to the 18 and 20 miler, like, no, there's no way I should do that fasted. There are fat adapted runners who do that. Yeah. But that's not me at this point. And so I would just break the fast and know that I wasn't going to fast that day.
So you would just eat something before you even started.
Yeah. So, and that's really in preparation for the marathon, because you have to practice everything before race day to make sure that it works for you. Yeah. And so I did that and those days. I would fast, 5 to 6 days out of the week, and then on that Sunday, not fast.
And that's the thing that I love about fasting is that fasting, it's not an all or nothing technique. Like you don't have to fast every single day to see results. Exactly. Every day you fast, you get results. Exactly. So, and that's what I love about what she's saying here is that she went into maybe her longer runs with the anticipation of just listening to your body, and I think if you wake up one morning and you don't feel great, well then eat.
Exactly.
Especially in that training period, because obviously your goals are to perform, for this marathon. So we talk about fasting, but there's this other level with the macro management that's going to be like your second, backup. So I think that's the biggest key. So kind of like, I'm going to summarize what I think my takeaway is with regards to the fasting and long runs is ease into it, allow your body a couple of weeks to adapt to it. Always run with a backup. Yeah. Have something in your pocket that if you do get to a point where you feel like you're not going to make it home, you've got an RX bar or something that you can consume, because obviously, getting to the end of your exercise is more important than the fasting. And then, assessing those longer runs to see how you're going to manage that. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So it is possible to train for a marathon and fast. Now, I want to talk about the macro management and the carb cycling, because that's another big concern. A lot of clients that reach out to me will say, should I eat more to offset my training? Should I, use your recommendations? How should I adjust my macros? And I'll tell you what I typically say is set it up as I tell you to, and then let's start training and see how you feel, If you feel like you're hitting all your macros, your proteins, your carbs, and your fats, and you are about to eat your arm off, then let's make some adjustments. But again, I think that there is always this notion that we need more than we actually need. So how did you go about setting up your macros and managing your food choices within those macros?
Yeah, so I set up exactly like you told me to, with not as much of a weight loss as the goal. And I didn't add back any calories from runs either, which was something that I think I asked you multiple times, should I be adding this back? And so I never added them back until I started ramping up the mileage at the end. And then I started really listening to my body. If I was hungry, I was going to eat. Yeah. And then adding back I never added it to weight gain, but more of a maintenance phase with the calories. And then with the macros, I really just hit everything as best as I could. And even on long run days with the carbohydrates, I still tried to stay within that goal. And then the low carb days, same thing, still hit the recommendations. Just knowing that my runs after those low carb days were not going to be my greatest runs, not going to be super fast. So those were usually on Friday, and they were a little bit slower.
So, when you look at the amount of calories and stuff that you got, and you look at how much you burned, during your runs, were you nervous in the beginning? Like, oh my God, I just burned I don't know, what's an average caloric burn in a 4 to 6 mile run?
Yeah, so I would say on average it'd probably be 350 to 500 calories. Yeah. So usually you think about 100 calories per mile. Yeah, no matter how fast or slow, even if you're walking a mile, it's about 100 calories. So, it didn't make me that nervous. I feel like I'm pretty cognizant about what my body needs calorie-wise, and I already knew that when I had that mindset of eat whatever you want because you burn those calories, it didn't work for me in the past. So I just knew to trust you and your plan, and it worked for me.
It all leveled out. Yeah. So that's because I get that a lot. They're like, I just burned this many calories. I feel like I need to add that back. And a lot of runners come to me, for weight loss, in terms of that. And so that's usually what I say is listen, if you want to lose weight, we can't add back your exercise calories. That's the whole notion of why we don't allow MyFitnessPal to track your exercise, because it kind of defeats the purpose, if you're we exercise for caloric burn. So we don't, I mean, I guess in maintenance mode, you can exercise to eat those calories,
Right.
Yeah. But so again, I don't really make any significant changes with regards to that, but you do kind of have to listen to your body. And I think it's important to note, so we do those 2 low carb days on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So what Hannah was saying is that she did notice coming out of that second low carb day, which we all feel it, when we lower your glucose intake significantly and we deplete through those glycogen stores, especially when you're doing those long runs, which you're going to really deplete those glycogen stores, you feel it Thursday night. And so you may need to make adjustments for that Friday run. Like that Friday run, you may need to definitely be stashing a bar.
Yeah.
You definitely want to recognize that it's going to be like slower. You mentioned your heart rate goes up.
Yeah.
So I think it's just recognizing that, these are the changes that you're going to see. And it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah. It's just a matter of, that's just, how your body's responding to that. Probably a little bit of extra stress with those lower carbs and the higher running.
Yeah. But I do think that it actually ended up being beneficial for me in the marathon because my body was used to pulling from fat stores instead of just relying solely on glucose. And so you do hear about fat adapted running where runners don't really eat carbs or have low carb diets. There's like keto runners out there, which doesn't even seem possible.
Right.
But I think that I felt like I was a good hybrid where I could burn glucose when I was using gels or goos or bars, but then also when those were running out, I didn't feel super terrible because my body had adapted to burning fat.
Because it knew how to do that. And it takes time. I mean, we talk about, it takes about 4 weeks for your body to adapt to living and burning on sugar and living and burning fat. And that's why I always say, sometimes the biggest results are in weeks 4, 5, and 6 because then your body actually does that switch. So I love that. Just even the fact that you feel like the fasting and the carb cycling potentially made you tolerate the marathon even better. So tell us a little bit about your marathon experience. So I want to talk about the week before because she did make adjustments in terms of going into that prep week, and you may have even made adjustments like the 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
So talk about a couple of the adjustments that you made leading up to the race.
Yeah, so you always want to practice before you go out race day with your nutrition because you can have stomach upset, you can bonk and not be able to run the full distance. So before I did a 20 miler a few weeks before, I practiced not intermittent fasting, carb loading, which usually happens the few days before the marathon happens, and really what I was going to do race week. And so then when it came to race week, I didn't necessarily track macros. I really tried to hit the calories, but I really had to shift my macros to be high carb, versus protein and fat. And I missed protein and fat so much during that week. But I went to high carb and just really tried to hit the calories, really listen to my body. If I was hungry, I ate, I stayed hydrated, and then race day, just prepared with eating a couple hours before the race and then doing the nutrition during the running.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then again, I think it's a matter of, listening to your body.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to run a mile. So obviously there's a whole lot of prep that goes into this marathon racing. So these are things that, marathon runners know to kind of practice what you're going to be doing the day before. And I thought it was really interesting because you said that people were super surprised at your results, like your coach.
Yeah, even my coach was really surprised.
Was excited about, I don't know, what does that mean? Like how fast you ran?
Yeah. Like
how well your body tolerated it?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So he had me set out to go with a 350 pace group. I missed it because I was in line for the bathroom. I started the race a little bit late, but just really listened to my body, was really precise with my nutrition during the run, as well as the hydration during the run, and then ended up coming out at 3 hours and 46 minutes. So I went 4 minutes faster than what he had thought I could do.
4 minutes?
Yeah.
That's lifetime in running.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what is that, a mile?
That was 8:39 a mile.
That's like a sprint. Holy cow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good. So, and I think that, you know, we were talking about that your body becoming maybe fat adapted, maybe contributed to your ability. How was the day after? Was it as bad as you thought it was going to be? Like, what was your recovery like after the marathon?
Yeah. So going downstairs was miserable.
Really?
So I would either go backwards downstairs
Oh
or
my
I would go
gosh.
sideways downstairs because your quads are just so sore and tight.
So sore.
Luckily, we live in a ranch house, so I didn't have that many
didn't-
stairs.
yeah.
But at work, it was slow.
Wow.
And then I didn't run for 2 weeks afterwards, just giving my body the rest. I'm prone to injury both from being postpartum, and then I had a stress fracture in the fall. So really just letting my body heal and recover. And so a lot of people at least take a week off of running.
Right. So, oh my God, I love that. That's amazing. Okay, guys, I love this topic. You know, I am not a runner, or I'm not a runner at all. So I'm so excited to have Hannah here because I felt like she is just a wealth of information because she did it. She lived it. So if you have any questions about, you know, distance running and fasting and carb cycling, ask those in the comments below. If you know someone who's a distance runner or training for a marathon who may benefit from this type of information, tag them, share this video with your friends and family. I think they'll just be impressed with how fast she ran a marathon. I know I am. What was your longest run up to the marathon?
I did a 20-miler.
So 20 miles. So were your quads not super sore after that?
Not as bad. So when it comes to training runs, you run a slower than marathon.
Oh, okay.
Than race day. You
and you did the Derby, right?
Yeah.
And is that supposed to be like really hilly?
It's not that hilly.
Okay.
So the other one that's close to us is the Flying Pig in Cincinnati, and I heard that one's hillier. So I decided to do the Derby, which only has in the middle at about mile 13, there's some uphills in Iroquois Park. So it wasn't too bad, and I feel like I'm pretty good at hills because around here we have a lot of hills.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Okay, I see the difference. I see. So you, I mean, obviously in the race, you're running much faster than you normally do. The other thing I like to mention is that Hannah is amazing with cross training. Like, she's not super big on Facebook, but she has a huge Instagram account. I'm going to put her account below. And if you're a distance runner, you're definitely going to want to follow her. She does a lot of cross training. And I think that that's super important for runners to realize that, you know, you can't just run. Like, you've got to get some of that strength training in. And we were even talking about, it's not even like heavy lifting.
Right.
It's more like functional stuff. Yeah. So she always has great tips for that. So thank you guys so much. I hope you found this information helpful. I know your friends and family will too. So use the share button below. We have a whole new session of Lean starting on Monday. So if you know.
I'm doing it too.
Yes. What week are you on too?
No, I'm going to be
starting.
You're starting. Yeah, I'm starting on the 17th.
Yeah,
so if you want
she's
to do it
starting
with
the
me.
If you want to do it with Hannah, maybe I'll make like a little distance runner group. So if you're interested in being in Hannah's group, just let me know when you register. All right, guys, have an amazing, what is today? Tuesday? Love you. Bye.